is, oh no, it's not just the drugs.
I'm an addict named Wendy. Hey, Wendy. I'm nervous. I've never done this before. I've shared once in my area, but I've never shared at a convention or, out of my area yet. But, when I first got here, I really did deep down believe it was the drugs. I thought if the drugs were gone, everything was going to be okay. And for me, I'm married to another recovering addict. So for him, he thought when my drug problem was gone, we'd be okay. And he told me that. And we came to Narcotics Anonymous, and I came to learn how not to use drugs. And what really, really hit home the most was when I realized Narcotics Anonymous is not about not using drugs. It's about living life without drugs. And I had no concept of that. None whatsoever. I was 32 years old when I got clean. I woke up, had 2 teenage kids, a husband for 15 years, and had no idea what to do with any of it, And the drugs, I went to a treatment center. They detoxed me. I don't know, somewhere along the line I decided, okay, I'm going to give this a try. I was clean. I didn't have any drugs in my system. And for me in the detox center, the night I came in, they told me what a panic attack was. They told me the symptoms of one. I'm like, okay, yeah, I have them. That's it. And the very generous doctor I had gave me what I was using when I came in, that night. So when I got up the next day, it was like, oh, I think I'm having one of them. And the nurse brought me my medication, and she told me, she says, well, I have to give you this. You say you're having these symptoms, you say this is going on, it's prescribed, I have to give you this. But I want you to think about something. Do you realize this is why you're here? And that really, I understood. I understood. It wasn't just the illegal drugs for me, it was every drug. And that's why my first day clean is in a treatment center, was in the detox center, because I had access to my drugs. All I had to do is ask, So July 24th, 1999, I got clean. And I went to my first NA meeting that I wanted to be at. I believe it was the 25th, the next day. Because I'm real fortunate. I work at the detox center I got clean in, and we have 3 meetings there. We have a noon meeting and 2 weekend meetings. So a lot of times I get paid to take patients to meetings, and that's really neat. And I go to Narcotics Anonymous today not to not use drugs, because the treatment center taught me that. If I don't pick it up, it's not getting in my body. Something I heard a speaker share once, I've never seen a joint, a pill, a needle, a bottle, anything chase somebody down the street. We chase it, So today I'm here to learn how to live life, because I really don't know how to get through certain situations without the drugs still, There's things that I come across that I have no idea how to handle. I still feel like a newcomer. I sit at meetings and I always hear something, that I need, and for me, it's not about the drugs today. That is my primary purpose, is not to pick up, but I've got to learn how to live without them. I used for a very, very long time. I started very young, and they say we start growing when we quit from the time we started, so I'm 15 years old, and have a 15-year-old, and that's really scary, because sometimes I do act like her. We're in each other's face, and I'm throwing just as much of a hissy, and I've got an 18-year-old that's in active addiction, and I love him dearly. But there's not a damn thing I can do about it except stay. You know, keep coming back and be here, hopefully, one day when he walks through that door and realizes it's not just the drugs. You know, the first time I really realized he was an addict was when I caught him using in the house, and we sat down and really talked about it, and he looked at me, he says, "But I'm not like you and Dad," you know, and that statement right there made him just like me and his dad, you know, and it hurts, it really does, because I do not want either one of my kids to have to go through what I went through, you know. I used for 22 years, no, 20, a little over 20 years, you know, I'm not sure. I picked up very young, you know, and for me, a lot of people don't like to hear this, but I just quit smoking, and I truly believe, for me, my first drug was nicotine. You know, I picked up when I was 7 years old. You know, I was inhaling by 8. You know, I picked up my first alcohol when I was 9 or 10. You know, the illegal drugs came when I was 12. It was progression. It really was. You know, and for me, I can't use anything outside of myself to try to fix anything inside myself today. And that goes a lot deeper. You know, it's not just the drugs. For me, it's the computer, it's the TV, it's sleep, you know, it's work. I can make anything, I can act out on anything and turn it into part of my addiction. And I gotta watch it. I can turn good things into my addiction. Meetings, I hid out in meetings for a very, very long time. I went to, you know, as many meetings as I could. I went to meetings to avoid my family. I went to meetings because I couldn't get a job because I needed meetings worse than I needed a job at the time, you know, and I didn't know anything else. I really didn't. And I knew as long as I was sitting in that meeting, I wasn't going to use. And I didn't know if I could do that at home. I really didn't. The fear of being alone terrified me, you know. I was an addict that I didn't use a whole lot alone, because me, if I had to, I would call you to share, so I didn't have to be alone. You know, even though I relate to people who sit in the middle of, you know, 30 people and be alone, that's okay. But, you know, I've got to have that person beside me. And it's taken me a long time to be okay being at home alone, you know. I work second shifts because of that. You know, my alone time is when I get home at midnight, my kids are in bed, my husband's in bed, and I'm by myself. But they're in the home, you know. When I first started working, I would sleep until it was time to go to work, because then I didn't have to be alone. And if I woke up early, I had to leave so I wouldn't be alone. And that's really scary. And today, I kind of like it. You know, I try to get up a little earlier now, so I have that couple hours before I go to work, you know. On my days off, I try to get up earlier, so I have some time before the kids get home. You know, it's really neat. You know, I'm growing, you know. But truly for me, it's never been just about the drugs. It really hasn't. You know, before I ever used, I did gymnastics, you know. I practiced twice a week. I had to be there 5 times a week. You know, I got on the swim team. We practiced 3 times a week. I was there 7 days a week, you know, 365 days a year. I had to be there. You know, I took everything I ever did in my life to extremes. You know, I have a brother that's 12 years older than me that is an addict, and I can say that because he admits he's an addict. You know, he's in prison, and he's been there for the past 2 years, a result from using. You know, he's never stole, he's never been caught for stealing, never, you know, killed anybody, you know, and he's pretty much of a wimp, so he's never beat anybody up. It's all, you know, alcohol, drugs, and driving charges. And he's had over 4 years of his life taken from that. You know, he lost a good factory job that he had 28 years in, you know. And I don't think he still gets it, that it's not just the drugs, you know. I don't know. My disease goes very, very deep. You know, I can manipulate, I can act out, and I can hurt people today. And I don't need a drug to do any of that. I really don't. You know, I can, thank you, Lord, I've never had to physically relapse. I've never had to pick back up yet. I know I'm not immune from it, but I truly believe I've had some mental relapses. You know, I have wanted to use so bad that if I didn't, I wanted to die, but I didn't pick up. You know, I used what the principals have taught me and my sponsor, and, you know, I've not used, and I've got to a meeting and I've called people, and that's what I have to do today. You know, I liked what somebody shared yesterday. It's you know, the program works, you know, and I have a program, but I don't have it without you. You know, I need every one of you. I need the newcomer walking in off the street because I don't want to go back there, and it reminds me. I need the old timer that's, you know, got time in to show me how to do this, because I have no idea. You know, I'm learning every day. And, you know, sometimes I really wish it was just about the drugs, because I'd be okay. You know, like I said, I don't have to pick up today. But I don't know how to do anything, you know, since I quit the food. You know, for me, thank you very much. I don't have to worry about that yet. I can act out on the food issue right now. And I am, and I really like it. But, you know, like I said, there's a lot of other things. You know, I've got to be real careful, because I can isolate today, and that's something that if I start doing that, I'm in a whole lot of trouble, because I'm never isolated. You know, like I shared, I didn't isolate an addiction. I would share my last thing with you just to have a body sitting there. And today, I cannot pick up the phone, and I cannot call my sponsor, and I can lay on my steps. And I know it's not good, but I just, you know, I'm going to keep coming back, and what I like to say is that staying's a lot easier, and too many people have proved that to me, and I don't want to have to prove it to myself. And I think that's all I got.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thanks.
Our next speaker is Bonnie from South Bend.
Mishawaka.
I'm sorry, I'm from South Bend. You're from Mishawaka.
South Bend, Mishawaka, same thing.
Yeah.
Sure is.
Hi, I'm Bonnie, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Bonnie.
And I say Mishawaka because that's where I'm from. And I have acceptance with that today. I used to say South Bend so you would know where I was from. But it's more important that I know where I'm from. And I'm from Mishawaka. And this is my first time, too. And I'm feeling all kinds of things, and different things than I was feeling when I signed up for this. And I'm in a different place because some awareness and things have happened this weekend that I haven't processed yet. But you know what? I really have trust in my higher power today, and I know there's a difference between what I want to say and what someone out there might need to hear, and I trust that my higher power will say what someone needs to hear. And what scares me the most is not what I'll say, but what I'm going to hear. And that's what really, really frightens me. I could just cry right now, but that's okay. I'm just going to get up here and be myself and talk about this, because it's not just the drugs. And I'm going to start a little bit at the beginning. And I know today it's not just the drugs, because all my life I felt different, and I felt a void. And, you know, I was the first girl after 7 boys, which started out with differences. We were a large family, and there weren't any other large families, which was a difference for me. And all these outside factors, I felt different inside. And it wasn't until the first time I picked up that I didn't feel that way anymore. I didn't care that I feel that way. I'm not sure, but, you know, it was like an answer. Like, whoa, I'm not different, and I can do anything, and it doesn't matter. And I really, really liked the way that drugs made me feel. And I would use occasionally, and then I would use daily, but you know, what the hell? It's my money, I work for it, I can, you know, it's not a habit, it's a way of life, it's a life choice, and the irony of all that. But then it got to where I had to use in the end, and then it got to where the drugs wouldn't work anymore. And things that I think about is, in the end, when things were really, really bad, and my husband went to my family and says, you know, Bonnie's got this problem and I don't know what to do. And they said, well, pack her shit and put it out on the street. You don't got to put up with that. And he thought about that on the way home, that's what my family did. That's what we did. We had problems, you up and you left. You didn't deal with them. You up and you left. And he came home and he didn't say, honey, you got a drug problem. He said, honey, you're sick and you need some help and there ain't a damn thing I can do for you. And I'm going to stay here and I hope I'm here when you decide to get better. And you know, I'm glad that I got better before he left. And my last day of using, I'm not going to get into all that where it led, but there was a point where I called and wanted more because I didn't have enough. It didn't work. I needed more. It didn't work. And the person on the phone said, no, you've had enough. And that just rings in my head because I hung up the phone and I was really mad. Who the hell are you to tell me I've had enough? You know? And, you know, that was the first opening of my mind that I don't know who my higher power is going to speak to me through. So I have to remain open-minded. And I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I knew what would happen. If I got dressed and I went to work, and I hadn't slept or ate in 3 days, but if I got up and got dressed and went to work, by the end of work, I'd be back out there again, and it'd be another day, and I'd be right back. I knew that's where I'd be. Well, I remember my husband mentioning this word, help. I didn't think I could be helped. I told myself some really big lies. I thought I couldn't be helped. I thought that good things happen to good people and good things didn't happen to me. So I'm not good people. This is the way life was. Suck it up and accept it. It was never going to get any better. But he had said this help word. So I thought, I really wanted to die. I was too chicken for that. That to me was the easiest, softest way at the time, but I was too chicken. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go there with this help word and see what happens. And I went to him and I said, honey, I've had enough. And you know, by now, I mean, this was months ago when he said this, and I mean, I really went through some horrible things. And you know, my family had enough long before I had enough. And anyways, so they just kind of, okay, called my daughter. I had to drive from South Bend to Elkhart, which was like 30 minutes, and we got out the phone book, trying to find help. Didn't know, you know, I didn't know. I never heard of Narcotics Anonymous. Didn't know, and we're calling these different addictions treatments and stuff like that, and because I thought it was just this one drug at that time that was causing problems, because all the other drugs I used in my life, they weren't a problem. It was this one drug had kicked my ass, and nobody would take me. I didn't have any insurance, and they told me that I needed to go to an emergency room. They wouldn't turn me away. Well, my daughter, you know, she'd given up enough of her life for me. And she had things to do and couldn't take me till later, but I really knew that if I got some sleep or some food, I would think everything was okay again. And I wouldn't go after this help thing. And I tell you what, that was the longest drive of my life. And I drove back to Mishawaka to the emergency room, and I went in there, and I walked up to the desk, and I said, I'm a crackhead, and I need some help. Asked for this help thing. And they took me in the back and they checked me over and they called some places, and there were 2 different places, this outpatient and then this inpatient. And at that time I thought I need to be locked up. They need to lock me up and throw away the key, and so I chose that one. And man, I tell you, I wanted to run at that point. I really wanted to run, and the only thing I think that kept me from running is I knew that that was the final straw for my husband and my daughter and some other relationships, that if I didn't try this and prove to them I couldn't be helped. That was, I need to prove to them that this help doesn't work. So anyways, from the hospital, I mean, they were going to take me in an ambulance, but I was like, no, I'm okay. My husband worked around the corner. I'll go there and he'll take me, and he took me. And the addict that greeted at the door, I didn't know he was an addict at that time. It was a guy in detox, and boy, was he a rough little man. He had no sympathy. He didn't care about all the pain I was in. And I'd whine, and you know what he said? There's the door. So great, go. And I don't know, that put some spunk in me. I don't know, I'm not sure. And I remember just, what the hell have I done? And you know, I was a pitiful sight. I remember I hadn't eaten in 3 days, and all they had was Cheerios down in the detox. No spoons, and I'm sitting here with a bowl trying to eat these Cheerios with this milk, and just everything just what the hell have I done? Why am I here? And anyways, I went to sleep and got up on May 4th, 2000. It was my first day clean. And I don't know what I was in for. I really didn't know. And it was really frightening, and I don't know a lot. And the reason I know it's not the drugs is because some other stuff was happening, other behaviors and things that I had blamed the drugs for, you know, that happened in my early recovery. And it was a while before I got to Narcotics Anonymous. And it seemed like a while because, you know, it was probably 7 or 8 days, which is a long time to not have any drugs, you know. That's a long time, I learned. And, you know, and then it took time to find, I believe there's all kinds of things going on, but to find the flavor of Narcotics Anonymous that I could relate to find that empathy, I think we call it today, empathy that I could relate to, and maybe get a little bit of hope that maybe this help thing would work, because I was still on this mission to prove I couldn't be helped. And anyways, I remember some of the things that I did and acting out, and 60 days clean, they said get this sponsor thing, get this sponsor, and I didn't know things like, you know, look for someone who has what you want, find someone who's working the steps. I didn't know what the damn steps were. In treatment, they had me work 3 steps. It seemed pretty easy. You just wrote this stuff out, and it was a release, and there was just all kinds of things going on in my life. And at 60 days clean, I told my husband that this sponsor person was having a sleepover, and that's not where I spent my weekend, you know. And that's when I realized it wasn't the drugs, you know. And then I got my hands on a basic text, and the first line in that text that got to me was when it said, our disease involves much more than the use of drugs, so our recovery must involve much more than mere abstinence. And you know what I can say to you? I'm an intelligent woman. And that was my first piece of hope, you know, that it wasn't, because, you know, I put down the drugs and life did get worse. I believe that. Everybody was wrong. As bad as my life was, you take that away and it was going to get worse. And it did. It did, because it wasn't the drugs. And there were things that I needed to work on. And, you know, I love the steps. For me, my freedom from active addiction. That's our message. To stop using, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live. Oh my God. Freedom is a big word in my life today. There's a workshop later on how free do you want to be, and that's what I've learned. How free do I want to be? And through those steps, you know, I have to talk about the steps because that's what, you know, our topic is, oh no, it's not just the drugs. So I talked about the drugs. Now I need to talk about the steps, you know, because the steps is what helped me with these behaviors that were going on in my life. I think the first positive behavior I picked up was throwing cigarette butts on the ground, coming to the realization there were other people in this world and somebody would have to pick my nasty butt up off the ground. And to this day, you ask people who know me, I have pockets full of cigarette butts because I won't throw them on the ground, but that was a positive behavior that happened, becoming aware that I wasn't the only person on this earth, you know, accepting that. But in the first step is when I came to realize, and I love that our first step says addiction, you know, and I believe it says we admitted that we were powerless over our disease, that it says disease, and it doesn't say drugs. You know, I know that I'm powerless over the drugs today. I know that I believe that a lot of people picked up that one and died so I could live today and I don't have to pick up that one. I have not had to use again because I really believe that there are other people who picked up that one and died. And now I know that don't do that. Don't do that, you know. And the unmanageability in my life, see, I thought because I did have this husband and this car and this house and this job that, you know what, that it really wasn't about the drugs because I wouldn't have those things. And you know what, those things were a mess. All of them were a mess, and they were, and those were going next, you know. And anyways, the biggest thing I got out of step one was that this disease was going to progress whether I used drugs or not, that I was going to die from this disease. And the choice was, how was I going to die from this disease? recovering from this disease or from using in this disease, but that this was a progressive disease and that I needed to journey on if I wanted to die clean from this disease and recover, and that this help thing did work. The thing with the help thing is you got to ask for it. You really got to ask. That's how it works, is just being able to ask for it. So anyways, I got done with the step one, and I just really felt in a bad place, and I'm really grateful my sponsor right away moved me to step two, where I found that hope. Because step one, for me, that was the honesty, that I had this disease and it was going to get worse if I didn't do something about it. Not you, not my husband. I had to decide to do something about it. And step two is where it allowed me to let you come in and help me. You know, that yeah, I had to do something about it, but I didn't have to do something about it alone. I didn't get that till step two. That's when my hope came. Hope that I didn't have to live like that. That I didn't have to keep repeating those mistakes. Hope that I could change. That life didn't always have to be like it was, you know. And then in step three, and it's funny because I didn't really feel step three till like later on, or step two later on. It's like, you know, you do the workbook and you get the spiritual principles and try to practice them, but the real feeling them comes later on for me. But step three, I got with this higher power, because, you know, it's not that I ever doubted that there wasn't something. I don't think these trees happened by accident. I really believe there was something, but what I believed is whatever that was didn't want me, because my life was so bad that it just didn't want me. And in step three is when I learned that my higher power loves me, not because of who I am, but because of who my higher power is. And that enabled me to trust, that to know that this higher power was going to love me no matter what my decisions were, good, bad, otherwise. It didn't matter, that I had that unconditional love, you know. And that enabled me to change behaviors, to stop doing things because I was going to be loved anyways. I think before, a lot of the things I did was out of that lack of self-worth that I'm really anyways, I'm not going there yet. Anyways, that I'm learning that I don't have to do things to get love, that I already am loved, you know, so it enabled me to stop some of those behaviors. And then in step four, I really got to know who I am, you know, and I'm really grateful. My sponsor had me write my resentments first, and it got all that crap, all that you did this to me thing out of the way, so that when it came time to write about me, that it was about me, and identify the patterns and why these behaviors happened and the chain reactions of the things that I did in my life, so that I would know what to stop, you know. Awareness really sucks at first, you know. For me, I know they say awareness, surrender, growth. Well, I used to say awareness, pain, growth. And then one day I heard someone say surrender. Oh, surrender's painful for me. That's what I caught on about, how painful surrender is for me. And what I've learned is the pain isn't in the letting go. The pain is in all the holding on, you know. The letting go is where the freedom comes from. And so writing and accepting this about my life, and accepting the truth about my life, you know, the searching and fearless, the fact-finding, the fact-facing, and also not seeking the perfection, but trusting that when I picked up that pen and that paper, that my higher power would bring out whatever needs to come out. Because I'd already gotten with the steps, you don't do them once, that I would do them again, and don't feel that I need to dig up stuff that ain't ready, that to trust that higher power to put out whatever I needed to put out. And then in 5, to admit the exact nature of my part. That taught me how to look at my part, to separate your part from my part, because you know I can't do anything about your part. I remember early on that my husband, and we went through a lot, and I'm so grateful for the suggestion of no major changes in the first year, because I'd have left his ass. You know what? Because he wasn't acting right. And I would call him up and they'd say, well, what did you do? No, but he's this and he's that. Well, Bonnie, what did you do? Well, can't he be an asshole? And they said, yes, he can, but we can't do anything about that. What'd you do? And, man, I just really hated you women at first as much as I love you. You know, but you taught me these things, how to look at me. And that's what step 5 did for me. Taught me to look at my part, because that's the only thing I can do anything about, you know. And then step 6 taught me that why I play my part, more or less, that these defects and step 6, it was funny because I was told to focus on all these defects, and what I got out of it is I need these spiritual principles, and my sponsor had me list these defects and how they manifest in my life and the shortcomings that result, and I wanted to write about spiritual principles. So I wrote the defects, and when I was done, I made the list of the spiritual principles and how they apply in my life, and you know what I realized? They weren't applying. That I needed to do some work, and as much as I thought I was applying them, I wasn't. And so I'm glad that I decided to do that, because I just really thought, I don't need to focus on them defects, I need to work on this, and realizing that it kind of goes together, that I have to make the choice that I don't have to act like that. Regardless of how I'm feeling in here, I don't have to act like that. I can choose to do something different. And somebody told me something this morning, because I've always, you know, the way with my recovery is when I become aware of something I don't like about myself, even though I don't know what to do, stop that. Just stop doing that. And someone shared with me this morning that what they do first is change the behavior, and then that'll stop. You know, so if I choose to start telling the truth, the dishonesty will go away. That's how that, you know, God is able to lift that. So I got to process that anyways. I got to process on it. But you know, and step 7 is my favorite step. That's why I learned to love me. Self-love and behavior. That love is not a feeling or an emotion, it's a decision. And step 3 taught me decisions require actions, because the decision I made in step 3 was the action was to finish the steps, to keep working and journeying on them. And so step 7 was about loving me, and some things have happened. I wear a seatbelt since step 7, because you know, when I get in my car and I ask my higher power to protect me on the road, and I'm not wearing a seatbelt and I'm driving like a maniac. And that realization came when I had a fender bender. And my sponsor says, well, were you riding right up on her, you know, right up on her? And I says, no, I was driving like I always drive. She says, Bonnie, you ride right up on people's. And I was like, oh man. But so, okay, I need to put my seatbelt on, and I need to be conscious. I need to do my part so my higher power can care for me. And I drink more water. I quit smoking for a while, and I picked that up again. And again, I had this that's why I'm in a different place today. And this person that I talked to this morning that I really respect about their recovery, and they said, well, what are you running from? So I'm dealing with that right now. But anyways, and I know that I trust my higher power. If he's bringing something up, I'm ready. Whether I want to or not doesn't matter. I'm ready, and I trust that. But step 7 developed a lot of self-loving. That's when I decided to love myself and to act on that decision. And that I didn't really love myself. And a lot of my actions I'm learning today are based on my self-worth. And I'm thinking this weekend that maybe my self-worth, I need to work on that some more. That I'm facading a lot, and I need to really take a look. I need to start writing. I haven't been writing in a little while, and I need to start writing again. And let's see what comes out. And then in step 8, you know, everybody talks about that step 4. I didn't like that step 8, because then I had to look at the pain I caused everybody else. Because, you know, it was about all the pain you people caused me, and then it was about the pain I caused myself, and I didn't want to look at the pain I had caused other people. And boy, that took a lot of courage to really look at that. And I'm glad the steps are written in order, because I learned my part, how to identify my part in step 5, so that I was able to realize that in step 8, it wasn't about what you did to me, it was about what I did. It was about, regardless of what you did to me, I know what I did wrong, and I have to own that. And if I want to be free from that, then I got to be willing to change it and accept it and let you know that I'm sorry, and I'm working on it. And I really don't want to hurt other people today. Through learning to love myself, I'm learning how to love other people. I mean, I believe I loved my husband, I loved my children, but I didn't know how to. And that's the best thing I can do for the people I love, is take care of me. You know, so anyways, and then step 9 is, you know, for me was kind of going over that with the sponsor, because, you know, between step 8 and 9 it says sponsor like 25 times. So I got the message. Don't be running around saying, I'm sorry, I need to talk to my sponsor about these amends that I feel I need to make. And I have an out-of-town sponsor, and we were supposed to do it here, and we couldn't, but that's okay. Then we were supposed to do it then, but we didn't, but that's okay. You know, we did it this weekend, but I have to tell you that there was one amend. My sister came into town, and I called my sponsor, and I'm like, my sister's coming to town, and I'm really okay with where I'm at and what I did wrong and my part in our relationship, because, I realized that when my sister reached out, I pushed her away, and when she loved me, I was judging her, and when she was accepting me, I was better than, and I could separate my part in that. And I really wanted to make that amend to her. And my sponsor, we talked about it, and she's like, okay, and what you're doing, and let me know that I was doing it, if there's a right or wrong, I'm not sure, but honestly, I think it's not about right or wrong, it's about how honest I am. And I made that amend in my sister, and it was just, it really prepared me, feeling the freedom of all that guilt and shame I had about the way I treated my sister all her life, and the release of that, and that it's okay, and we have the rest of our lives to be together, and I don't have to treat her that way anymore. And she's not trying to get mine, and everything she did for me, and she said the greatest thing. She said, Bonnie, you didn't take from me. Whatever you got from me, I gave to you. And that just, So there was a lot of healing in that relationship. And I'm glad because, I love my sister today. And I want to be a part of her life. And I want to be able to ask her for help without it being a manipulating thing, to be an honest thing, because I want help. But we went over the rest of my amends this weekend, and I was kind of dreading it because I thought I'm going to have to rush out now and do this work thing. And she was really great, and she helped me separate. There were things that weren't mine, and to take that out of there. And I understood why not to run around and do that without my sponsor, because I needed to pull out things that I was taking that weren't mine, because I sometimes want to take it all, and it's not all mine to take. People do play another part, and as much as I thought I'd learned that in step 5, I'm still learning that, and that's what I learned, that I'm still doing that. And she helped me separate that, and she let me know that the time God would put in my way when it's time for me to go through that healing process. And then while we were waiting to do that, she says, one day she says, well, you started your step 10, and I'm like, oh no, you didn't tell me to. You know what, Bonnie, you know where you're at. You know what you need to be doing, and I expect you to be doing it. You got a problem, call me, And I had started the step 10, which to me is working them other 9 steps every day, but in a little quicker fashion, kind of, condensed so that I don't have to get all that crap in me that I've worked so hard to clean out. And learning the freedom from admitting my wrongs right away. The sooner I can admit it when I'm wrong, the less pain I have. I've learned that. And the longer I hold it, the more pain I have. And the quicker that I say I'm sorry and I realize it, and the quicker I fix it rather than hanging on to it, the easier it is. It really is. I still have fear and I still have apprehension, but I know that the end result is worth it. And anyway, so I'm on step 11, and I have to share this because this has been my little, I call it high because I don't know how else to describe it. But I read at the end of step 11. And by the way, if I've said anything out of the literature, pick it up and look it up. And if I'm wrong, please let me know. Because I really believe that in our literature, and a lot of people died so I could live, and a lot of people lived so I could live. And I believe somebody didn't make this shit up in our literature. It is experience of other people who come before me. And I've learned to respect and appreciate the people before me. Because of them, I don't have to make all the mistakes. I just get to make my share. But I don't have to make them all. And step 11, it says, it was talking about our higher power's will. And it said to live with dignity. And that has just been dignity. Do I even know what that is? I'm really wondering, and I'm going to spend some time writing about what is dignity. And do I have dignity in my life? Am I loving myself enough today to live with dignity? And so that's where I'm at. Well, that's where I was at before I got here. Now I'm at a hole because all this other stuff. And I've learned in this process that the more open my mind is, the more this healing, and it is a healing, and it's not just the drugs. And you know what? I'm so glad, because once I get to the truth and I know what the problem is, I get in the solution. And you know what? The problem was I had this disease called addiction. The solution was these steps. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this fellowship. And I remember in the beginning, my husband couldn't understand because he was the one that waited up night after night, not knowing when I'd come home, not knowing if I'd be okay, not knowing how to pay the bills because I was spending all our money. And he couldn't understand why I came here and how you guys could help me, and he couldn't. And he didn't understand that he didn't understand, you know. And I'm glad that you guys understood. I'm really glad because, you know, I'm in a great place today, except for now I'm afraid because I got all this awareness, but it'll be okay. Because courage to me doesn't remove my fear, it just allows me to work through that fear and get on the other side, you know. And that's to me what it's about, getting on the other side, you know. And I don't ever want to go back to where I was, not in recovery, not picking up and using. I don't ever want to sit there and ever feel again that hopelessness, you know. And no matter what happens, because life happens, no matter what happens when life happens, I don't ever want to lose my hopelessness. And you people give me that hope. That's where that comes from. Listening to you people share is my hope. And I have to, another thing I picked up out of this weekend that I'm still processing, but I went to the meditation last night and I walked away with that what I need to start doing for myself is learning how to, because I've become aware of this judgment thing I'm really working on. And judgment is not a spiritual principle. You know, I'm learning it's not a spiritual principle. And if I want to be spiritual, then I got to quit looking at you with my eyes and listening to you with my ears, because that's the human part of me, and I'm human. But if I want to really get to know you, then I have to, with my heart, learn to look at you with my heart and listen to you with my ears, and that's how I'll grow. And okay, I'm still processing that, but I thought maybe I'd share it because maybe someone will come up to me afterwards and say, I went through that, and this is what I did, and I'm going to listen to them. And anyways, I that's all I have, and I really want to thank you. Thank you for helping me stay clean. Help works. Help works, you know. So.
Thanks, Bonnie. Okay, this ends at noon, I think it is. Now what do I do? Before we open the floor for sharing, I need to remind everyone that you are being taped. If you wish not to be taped, please let us know and we can turn the tape off. Would anyone like to come up and share?
My name's Carla Mahat.
Hey, Carla.
Carla. I have my shoes off because I feel more comfortable. Bonnie was talking about hope. Since I've been here, I've had a tremendous hope. You know, I see all these people, and it's just that hope is like, you know, it's, you know, I'm seeing a lot of it. You know, it's helping me. It's helping me tremendously. You know, it's helping me realize that finding myself and working on what I need to do is what I need. You know, I need to take a look at things, you know, from my perspective and how I feel about things, and you know, and just get my feelings out, you know, and get all that shit out, you know. I mean, I do have a problem with stuffing stuff in, and using makes it deeper, you know. It brings it more deeper, and it also causes more problems and causes more stress, you know. I don't want to have all that stress in my life. I want to like let it go, you know, so I can just have a good life, you know. I see these people and they're like, they got all this life and I want it, you know. It's great, you know. I've had a lot of emotions and feelings, you know, and I've been able to think about things in my life that that maybe are harmless, that maybe, well, things that are harmless to me and things that are harmful to me. And you know, there's a situation that's coming up with me, and I'm getting a little stressed about it because it's getting so closer. My boyfriend is in jail, and he's been in since February 24th, and before he went in, we were using together, and you know, and I got to this program because I was like, you know, he's in jail, you know, I can't handle this shit, you know. I had so much of a codependency to him. It's like, you know, we've used drugs together, but and when we didn't have it, I just felt like I couldn't do anything if I didn't have him, you know, and that's not good thinking, you know. I need to be able to take care of myself and be able to, you know, focus on what I need to do for me, you know. I need to stop trying to help everybody else, and, you know, I see a lot of people in the program that have, you know, problems with their children in foster homes, or, you know, they've had to, you know, well, my son's 15 months old, so he doesn't really know what's going on right now, you know. I want him to see me in recovery, you know. I don't want him to see me in active addiction. I mean, what am I going to be to him? You know, I'm not going to be a good mom, you know. And I'm seeing a lot of that here, you know. It's like, I don't know, it's, so I guess with the situation with my boyfriend is, you know, and then I heard Bonnie talking about, well, you know, her husband stuck by her and, you know, was there for her, but, and I kind of got feelings towards him too with that, because he's been through a lot in his life, you know, and I'm feeling like I need to be there to help him, but I don't need to do that, you know. I'm just feeling like I'm just feeling like I need to lay it on the line, you know. I need to tell him that I'm going to be working on myself, and I'm going to be going to this program. You know, if you want to stick by me and you don't want to use, then that's cool. But if you're not going to stick by me and you're not going to be there for me, then, you know, you can go you can see your son, you know, that's cool. But, you know, go your own way, because today I'm just feeling like, you know, I'm the one that's important at this point, you know. I can't go out there, you know, because I keep stuffing, you know, and I got to bring all that out, because if I keep using, I stuff it more and more, and they say when you do that, then you'll lose the higher power that you have, you know. You'll lose it all, and you'll just be dead, you know. You'll be dead inside, and then after that, I could be dead, you know, underground, and I don't want that, you know. I can't, and that's all. Thanks.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to share?
Yeah, I'm an addict. My name's Mark.
Mark.
What's this? Oh no, it's not the drugs. It's not just the drugs.
Yeah.
Oh man, I read that. I said, damn it. Because that's all I signed up for, man. I just wanted the drugs. I don't want to use the drugs no more. You know? I came here, I said, I can't use anymore, and I don't know how to live without using. That's where I was. I wasn't driving a Cadillac. I wasn't rolling sevens, man. People said, keep coming back. And I said, what do they want, man? What do they want? Because, see, I hear messages about the literature, and that's what I do. I got here the easier, softer way. I spent about 12 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, and then I quit working, and it quit working, and I came to Narcotics Anonymous, and whatever they told me to do in AA that I never did, I did in NA. Except I didn't write. I still ain't written yet, but I'm glad I didn't come in that way, because I see that's another reservation, man. That's another suggestion I wouldn't have followed. Because, see, well, I did, I did write. I rewrote the steps to fit me. You know? This shit's way too simple. I'm very complicated. As a result of coming back and not using, life started happening. Feelings started coming. What's this all about, man? I don't understand why I feel like this. I've never felt like this before, because I stayed wasted. I don't know, when I go out there and deal with the normal people, man, like there's normal people out there that are happy to see me now. You know? And that's a direct result of you guys teaching me how to live without the use of drugs. I don't know how to live like that. I don't know how to get to that boredom that I have in my life now, what is really serenity, you know. I want that serenity so bad. You know, I want to get off the drugs, man, and this waste, this waste that I've made, that I've created my entire life. The minute I put the shit down and walk in the door, I want y'all to fix me right now. You know, I ain't waiting, man. You know, I put the shit down. Now it's time. I should be better now. Keep coming back, man. Keep coming back. I heard it said here, you know, closing in the circle. Keep coming back or die. That's where it's at for me today. I don't have no reservations. I don't have nowhere else to go. I don't have nowhere else to go. I've hit bottoms in recovery that, thank God for you people in Narcotics Anonymous. Because the only place I could go is where I know, the street, man. But I came back. You know, I came to you because you taught me how to live. You taught me that no matter what happens, I don't have to pick up today. And ain't nobody out there going to tell me that. I remember very early, less than 6 months into recovery. The only tool I had was this, it was a token, man. And I had it in my pocket. And we were at a racetrack, and the people that I was with wanted some beer, and they didn't want to go up and get it. And I'm, hey, man, I'll go get it, you know. Shit, I'll take care of y'all. And I'm standing in line with this beer, man, and I'm freaking, because I'm shaking. I'm going to drink this goddamn beer, man. And I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, man, if I say to these guys, I need this beer, they're going to say, man, drink the damn thing. And that's what was scaring me. And I was getting close to the cash register, so I reached in my pocket for the money, and I felt that token. And I just felt this peace come over me, just from that token. And I looked, and there was some lids, man, you know. And I went over and I grabbed the lid and I put the lid on top of the cup, you know. Oh, wow, who'd have thunk? I ain't never done that in my life, man. I'll tell you what, to this day, I don't leave half a bottle of pop sitting on the damn bar, you know what I'm saying? I still take it all, you know. I still take it all. So, you know, it ain't just the drugs. But if I didn't come here, I wouldn't have nowhere else to go. And I can come here, and to come here for me means to participate. It means to go to the workshops. Sometimes I run my mouth, sometimes I don't. It means to hang out with people, because when I leave here, I want to take this whole weekend with me, man. And I want to feel what I feel here. I want that to carry on for more than 5 minutes, you know. I want this shit to last more than when I get to the intersection of 15 and 6 out there, man, you know. I want the shit to last a while. So I can get a whole lot of it here, but in order to keep it, I have to continue to go to meetings, and I have to give it away. And sometimes I don't have it to give away. But you know what? You guys have taught me that it's all right to walk in the rooms, and if the topic is gratitude, I can say today, look, man, fuck gratitude, I feel like shit. And y'all say, hey, man, it'll get better. And it does. It does get better. It gets worse, too. You know? Just because I put the shit down don't mean it's the 4th of July anymore, man. You know? It gets worse. So what? Who the hell am I to think that it's a bowl of cherries 24/7? You know? It ain't about that. It's about learning to live without the use of drugs. And learning to live means that, like, there's these, like, emotions and feelings and shit. I don't know nothing about that, man. What is happening to me? Well, you're right where you're supposed to be. I got so sick of hearing that. When the pain of changing. And I say it today, man. People talk about, man, 4 step. I said, well, when the pain of changing. And they say, man, I'm sick of hearing that. I say, yeah, I used to say that shit too. You know what? And when the pain of changing got there, yeah, I changed, man. But I get acceptance with a 2x4 upside the head a lot of times, man. That's how I get it, you know. That's how I get it. But it's getting better. It's places like this that keep the growth going on, man. And some days I go backwards, and that's okay too. But I ain't had to pick up. And that's a damn miracle. Thanks for being here.
My name's John. I'm an addict. The longest time out there on the street, I said, man, these drugs are kicking my ass, and my life's just going to keep getting worse. And I can't do anything about it. And then I got here, and I heard the man who is now my sponsor talk about that first step. And when he got here, he thought it said we admitted we were powerless over drugs, and that our lives had become unmanageable, because that's what I saw when I first got here. And I recognized that that's what I thought. And over time, come to a little bit of different understanding of it. And I do it still today. I haven't used in several 24 hours. But the disease for me today is the thinking about the using. And that using continues using, and it starts the compulsion. And it keeps on going, and it keeps on going until I'm left alone and hollow and a shell of a man. And doesn't matter what it is. I will sit on the couch, tapping my fingers, waiting for my wife to get up and go to bed so that I can log into the internet. So, same thing, just different. So I was real grateful for what people had to say today. I'm glad I'm clean. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, John.
I'm Cliff, an addict. I got real lucky. I was told real early that it wasn't about the drugs. First experience, I'd been clean because of the local county correctional facility, and I was in front of the judge, and I said, please send me to treatment. I figured that was the way out because I was a drug addict. And this judge, I'll never forget this. This judge looked at me and says, you don't have a drug problem. I have never had a drug charge. Alcohol, but that's not a drug, of course. So back to jail you go. And I didn't pick up on it then, and I wish I would have, but after that, I didn't stay long, and I got released, and I don't know about where you're from, but where I originally got clean, they had really big meetings, and they'd have them in these big halls, and they'd have these coffee rooms. Well, I didn't have any money, and so when the basket came around, I'd run off to the coffee room. I'd grab a cup of coffee, and I'd sit in the bathroom on the toilet and drink my cup of coffee and eat a cookie and read a pamphlet. And I was stealing the free coffee. And that's what it came down to. I didn't have the money to put in the basket because, you had to pay for the coffee. And if you don't know, you really don't have to, but, that's what I thought. And I didn't have money, and so I couldn't buy the literature. I sure in the hell couldn't pay for the cookies. And so I stole this stuff. And, fortunately, my sponsor caught me. And what he was doing hanging out in the bathroom, I don't know, but and he said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm drinking a cup of coffee. And but why don't you drink it in the room with everybody? The meeting's going on, and I said, well, I don't have money to pay for it. He said, well, coffee's free. I said, okay, well, they're passing the basket. I want people to see me, not put a buck in the basket because you're all watching me. And yeah, and so wow, maybe it is more than drugs. I'm a thief. That's my problem. And I was a thief. And I'm glad somebody mentioned the steps because when I really got into the steps, I was a thief, but what was really behind all that stuff, some of the things that popped up real quick was arrogance. You guys were all watching me. That's why I had to go hide while the basket was being passed. And then when I got real deep into that stuff, it was about fear, shame, and guilt. I felt really guilty and ashamed that I didn't have money like you guys all had money. And you'd been here a long time. I, had a couple days clean or whatever, and and I didn't have money like you guys did, and I couldn't afford, you know, my own cigarettes, let alone the free coffee, and you know, so I had to hide. You know, I couldn't let you guys know. You know, and that help thing, I just couldn't ask for help. You know, I couldn't ask for that kind of help. You know, I could ask, you know, if I was bleeding, you know, please stop the bleeding. You know, I'm using too much. You know, please help me stop using too much. But I couldn't ask for the money thing. You know, and I don't know. You know, and so there was a lot of shame in that. You know, and a lot of guilt that you know, came along with that because I stole because of the shame, and it all came back to that I was afraid. You know, I was afraid I wasn't going to get what I wanted. I was really afraid I wouldn't get what I needed. You know, and I was horribly afraid that, you know, you people wouldn't love me. Because you all said it, man, you said it over and over. Let us love you to learn to love yourself. I was afraid you wouldn't do that because I wasn't good enough. You know, and it comes back to, and I really, you know, there's one thing I'm going to take away from this convention, if nothing else, and it's what you said, and I hope you don't mind me pointing you out. But, you know, and it comes back to what you said about your higher power. You know, your higher power didn't love you because of who you were, it's because of who your higher power was. And you guys didn't love me back to Sandy because of who I was, it was because of who you people were. You people are the greatest people I've ever met, you know. But, you know, and that's what it was all about, you know. Yeah, I used a lot of drugs, but, you know, behind all that shit, you know, was this really scared, frightened person, you know, who didn't know how to deal with society in any form. You know, the underclass of society or the, you know, the regular people in society. You know, so I'm so incredibly grateful for you people, and, you know, in our literature who, you know, brought me back to, you know, some sense of sanity. Thanks.
Thanks, Cliff. I have just been informed that it is, actually this workshop lasts until 12:15, so we still have 20 minutes. Does anybody else want to come up and share? All right.
I'm Johnny, I'm an addict.
Hey, Johnny.
I remember when I went to treatment, I weighed 113 pounds, and I thought if I just gained weight, I'd be okay, you know? You know? And my last 4 years of using, I didn't think about women, so after about 9 months clean, I thought if I just get a woman, I'd be all right. You know, and I had 2 years clean. I go in a halfway house because my sponsor makes me, because a relationship went bad, and I leave there with my next wife. You know, and I'm 9 years clean before I figure that out. You know, denial is what kills me in recovery. It ain't about the dope anymore. It's denial of my behaviors. You know, I still cheat in cards.
Yeah, you do.
You know.
You make me mad to play with you.
But the thing about it is you people still love me.
Yeah.
You know, you still love me and you accept me. And you make me feel comfortable with you. You know, I mean, I can remember so many things in early recovery. I can remember going to my sponsor and just saying, you know what they did to me? You know what they did to me? And he'd say, you know, he said, Johnny, I've been all over Muncie. And I ain't never seen one statue of you anywhere there. You know, and it just humbled me so much. And there's just so many things that have changed in recovery for me. And when I get out of the denial and get out of the way, then I can find out things about me. And you know, most of the time I tell people I'm the sickest one here, and a lot of people agree with me. You know, but I'm grateful for what I have today. You know, for the ability to have solitude instead of being lonely. You know, that is one of the greatest things that I've been able to get close to here. You know, because it used to just be loneliness, and I'd have to have somebody or something, and you know, I've worked real hard on that the last 2 years, and you know, it's just it amazes me how much we can continue to change as we continue to do the things we need to do. You know, I lay on steps, and I said, well, you know, I'm working with my sponsees. you know. I'm doing this service work over here, you know, and I ain't doing shit. You know, I ain't doing shit. I'm laying on them, like Wendy was talking about. And we talked about that a lot because we're both laying on the same one. And I know that the pain's starting to get me. You know, the pain's starting to get me because I know that it's going to be better if I go through it instead of staying on it. And I'm truly grateful for that. You know, and I just love Narcotics Anonymous and love to be a part of it. And you know, there's so many things that, I mean, I watched my sponsor get so mad at me last night because I cheated in cards. and I get a big kick out of it, you know. I mean, maybe it ain't right, but I found out how to have fun here, you know. Like I said, you know, you guys accept me as I am, you know. I mean, I found out how to have fun here. You know, if I couldn't have fun here, I'd be out there on the streets. You know, there are so many things that I've had the privilege and the honor to be a part of in Narcotics Anonymous, and this is one of them. You know, being here, meeting new people, meeting somebody that works in the same industry that I work in, and knowing that he's probably got 45 inmates work for him too. You know, I mean, it's and knowing that we fit in that situation so well. You know. But the bonding, you know, and the realizing that, you know, you guys will help me. You guys will help me see the things that I don't see. And I'm grateful for that.
Anybody? Are we all talked out? Oh. Well, okay, last chance. Okay, let's see, close, okay, on time. And close with a group hug and the serenity prayer.